Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is all about the most classic bags that you can buy right now, and I'm excluding the three brands that are usually talked about in this sort of video. So I'm not including any bags from Chanel, Hermes or Louis Vuitton. They are often referenced as having the most classic bags and certainly those with the best resale value, but I also know that not everyone wants a Chanel Classic Flap or a Louis Vuitton Speedy or an Hermes Birkin. So today I'm focusing on all the other bags out there. I'm not really focusing so much on resale value, but more trying to pinpoint the styles which I think will very much stand the test of time and still be relevant looking in 5 or 10 years time. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and let's get started. This video does continue on my collaboration with MyTheresa, one of my go-to stores for luxury shopping and especially luxury bags as well. And everything that I'm mentioning in today's video is available from mytheresa.com. So I will leave links to everything down below in the description section if you did want to check anything out. So I'm splitting this video into two parts. The first part, I'm going to be sharing the specific styles and the specific bags which I think are very classic and are going to stand the test of time. And in the second part of the video, I'm going to be sharing 4 rules that I try and stick to in order to ensure a good purchase, and also what to avoid as well. So the first bag style I wanted to mention was more of a general style that quite a few different bag brands do, and that is camera bags. This is one style that just does not seem to dip in popularity at all, and this has been around for decades now. You know, you still see cropping up on eBay vintage ones from Chanel. You know, they have been around for a very, very long time, and season after season, major bag brands continue to release their versions because it's just a style that everyone seems to love. I have my newest edition, which is the Saint Laurent camera bag, and they have made this a bit more dressy. And that's really, I think, the beauty of a camera bag. You know, it is very, very versatile, and some certainly are more casual than others. Here I'm thinking of the Gucci Soho Disco, which I'd say is a little bit more casual, but at the same time, if you wanted a more dressy version, I think this is a lovely option. You know, you do have the gold hardware, you have the YSL logo, little details like the tassel, you know, everything about it is just a little bit more dressy, but either way, I do think that they are very versatile, so you can easily switch them from outfit to outfit, and they're also just very functional and comfortable to wear as well, which is why they are just a very, very constant style that a lot of bag brands do keep producing. And that's everyone from, you know, Gucci, as I mentioned, Saint Laurent have done a few different versions, Chanel continues to do their versions, Valentino do a version of their camera bag, just so many different styles and options, and I would say this has absolutely made it into the classic bag territory just because of how constant it is and how often we see it being brought back season after season. The next bag that I wanted to mention was the Bottega Veneta clutch, and Bottega Veneta obviously having a bit of a moment right now due to their new creative director Daniel Lee releasing his debut collection of accessories and bags, including the pouch, which has just become very, very popular on social media. But I wanted to talk about one of their bags which has been around for a little bit longer, which is their woven clutch. And this is a bag which is so beautiful, and I've only ever heard extremely good things about their quality. You know, their leather is supposed to be incredibly luxurious and lovely, but even the design of this bag I think is so stunning, and it's very, very understated. So there's nothing flashy about this bag at all. There are no logos or anything like that, but it's just very beautiful in how elegant it is. It does just have that woven look, so you do have the woven leather and then you have that knot detail in the clasp. It's so stunning, and this has been around for so many years now. I don't remember the last time it wasn't re-released. You know, they release it every single year because of how enduringly popular it is, and it's very, very classic, and it's also very iconic at this point as well. You know, if you know your bags, it's a good chance you'll be able to recognize this, and it is very, very quintessentially Bottega Veneta as well. So absolutely worthy of inclusion on this list. I really think it is a very, very classic bag. I think we're going to continue to see it for many, many years. The next bag I wanted to mention was from Mulberry, and it is the Mulberry Bayswater. I actually have the updated version here, which is the zipped Bayswater tote, but I also am including in this the original Bayswater design. I actually think they did a great job with the updated design, because I think it's quite difficult to take a very classic best-selling model and update it well, but I do think that they managed to do that with the zipped Bayswater. I love the functionality. This has been really one of my go-to bags. The strap is great, it's a lot more comfortable for me, and I just personally find it a lot more practical, and that's coming from someone who's also owned the original Bayswater before. But regardless of which one you like, I do think this is worthy of inclusion on the list just because of how long the Bayswater has been going, how continually popular it is. You know, again, it's one of those styles that you release year after year because it is so popular, and if you go out on the streets of London, you'll almost be guaranteed to see one out and about. You know, it's very difficult to walk through the city or Canary Wharf and not see a Mulberry Bayswater. And it's also because, you know, you can buy one and literally wear it for years and years and years. You know, their leather is great, they continue to really look the part, but they're also understated enough to work for everyday life. So I do think that the Mulberry Bayswater is a very classic option, and if there was a handbag Hall of Fame, I do think this would be included in it. The next bag that I wanted to mention was more of a general category within a brand, and that is Prada bags. And I have two Prada bags right here. The first one is my double bag, and then the second one is the little bucket bag that I just got. And they both feature that little triangle Prada logo, and that's really what I wanted to highlight, because Prada styles do come and go, and I would certainly say that I wouldn't consider every single bag that Prada does a classic bag, but in terms of their more mainstream shapes and styles, I do think that Prada bags are a pretty safe bet just because of how consistent they've been with their logo. I was watching How to Lose Guy in 10 Days with Kate Hudson the other day, complete throwback I know, but she had a Prada bag that she was wearing in one of the scenes. And I think if you wore that today, you wouldn't blink an eye. You'd think maybe you bought it last year. Similarly, I also saw a photo with Miranda Kerr. She was carrying a Prada bag from many, many years ago. And again, the whole look, it was just difficult to place it exactly when it was. I think there are so many examples of that with Prada bags because they have kept their logo very, very consistent, which is very helpful in terms of a very classic looking bag. And again, I don't think this applies to every single style that Prada does, but certainly they're more kind of common styles, so shoulder bags, tote bags, that sort of thing. As long as it does have the Prada logo, I do think that there is a very, very classic element to it. So this is definitely one that I wanted to include. I think Prada is a beautiful bag brand anyway. They do some stunning bag designs, and their logo is now very iconic because they have been so consistent with it. And very similar to Prada, I wanted to mention Saint Laurent for very, very similar reasons. I have two examples here. So one is my Saint Laurent wallet on a chain and also my wristlet, both of which feature the YSL logo. And Saint Laurent is a fashion house that has undergone so much change in recent years. You know, they've literally dropped 1/3 of their name. So they used to be Yves Saint Laurent and now they're just Saint Laurent. They've undergone, you know, a name change, logo change as a result, a font change, creative designer changes. There's been so much happening with that fashion house, but even throughout all those changes, the one thing that they've kept very, very consistent is their YSL logo. And that's because it is very iconic, and it also helps make their bags look very, very classic, and it makes it much less easy to identify when you bought the bag because they've kept that YSL logo so consistent. So you could have bought a style 4 years ago, or you could have bought it last week, and it's much less easy to tell. So that is always something to consider when looking at a bag, how often the fashion house changes their logo, because the more consistent they are, the more classic the bag looks, generally speaking. And I would say there are always exceptions to that. You know, I do see some slightly more unusual styles from Saint Laurent, like I do with all fashion houses, but as long as you don't go for a completely crazy style and stick to the usual suspects, such as, you know, a wallet on a chain, a clutch, a smaller crossbody, that sort of thing, you'll be very, very safe with Saint Laurent because of how classic and iconic they've made their logo now. The next bag style I wanted to mention was the Givenchy Antigona, which I absolutely think is a classic bag at this point. And I do think it's one of the few examples of an it bag, or a so-called it bag, that has also stood the test of time, because the vast majority of it bags are very popular upon their release, but then they also have a very sudden dip in popularity as well. Whereas the Antigona was a crazy popular it bag, but it's also maintained its popularity very well, and certainly not to the levels it was when it was first released, but it's been a very consistent and very popular style for many years now because of how classic it looks and how functional the design is as well. And I have two here, one of which is a new addition to my collection, but my original one is the black medium one, which I still reach for all the time. I think it is a great work bag, and I just think it looks so, so chic, which is why I always return back to it. You know, I don't think that there are many darker bags I own which complete an outfit quite as well as this one, and I still love it. Which is why I also decided to get another version, and this is actually the first time I'm showing this on my channel. It is in the small size, and this is in the mock croc. I first saw a variation of this on Olivia Palermo many years ago, which tells you how long it's been around. She styled it with leather leggings and a sheepskin best. She had the medium version, I believe, also in the mock croc, and I love that look so much. She always looks very, very stylish. Obviously it's Olivia Palermo, but that one image has really stuck in my mind. I saw this, had no intention of getting it. It was definitely an impulse purchase. Tried it on and then that was it pretty much. So I love this. I think it's so lovely. Mock croc is obviously a huge trend as well. I do think that the Antigona is just such an incredibly classic style. So I love this, and another one that I think if there was a handbag hall of fame, this would definitely be included in it. And for my very last category, I had to include tote bags, and I'd be willing to bet my entire bag collection, in which I have many, many tote bags myself, that the tote bag style is one that is never going to fall out of favor, because it is a style that just does its job very, very well. You know, it's very functional, and there is always going to be the need for a good tote bag. And it doesn't really matter as much when it comes to tote bags what brand, because there's only so much variation you can have with the design. You know, it's a pretty straightforward design, and unlike other styles like shoulder bags, there isn't too much you can do with it, so there's not as much variation. An example I have though is my Valentino tote, which I have right here. I love this tote, and if you wanted to invest in a more luxurious one, I would always say to go for a, generally speaking, more plainer option, but with individual small flourishes from that design house. So with Valentino, an example of that are the studs. With Saint Laurent, their tote bag is very minimal and they do just have that stamping. And what I would tend to avoid more, and I'm not including monogram in this, but if you had something like, you know, Fendi Logo Mania, like a tote with all those logos, which is very in your face and not a classic monogram. So if you're going for an investment purchase and want something that's very classic, I would say go a bit plainer, but with smaller design flourishes if you did want that more luxury element. And now I wanted to share with you 4 tips that I try and stick to in order to ensure that I make a good purchase, that it's going to look classic and I'm going to be able to enjoy it for many years to come. And usually speaking, something is classic because the design is very beautiful and it's also very functional and a joy to use as well. So I always try to keep that in mind. And the first thing that I always try and look at is the fabric, and more often than not the leather. I try to avoid the more wacky leathers and fabrics out there. And this doesn't apply to everything, you know, obviously if it's a more trendy and cheaper purchase, I'm happy to go for anything. But if it's something that I'm investing a lot of money into, I always try and make sure to go for something a little bit more classic. And by that I usually mean a just very boring standard leather, whether that's grained or pebbled or even smooth leather. I'll usually avoid things like, you know, a PVC or a super shiny patent leather or anything like that. Just a normal, very boring, pebbled, grained or smooth leather is usually the safest way to go. And my second point is about durability, because it's all very well and good to have a beautifully designed bag that looks very classic, but if the durability isn't there and it hasn't aged very well and it's kind of crinkled and sagging and all that kind of stuff, it's just not going to look very good. So durability absolutely factors in as well. And going back to my first point, I'd always say to go for a more pebbled or a grained leather if you can. Smooth is nice, but it usually is more susceptible to kind of marks and scratches. A good example of this is the Saint Laurent pebbled leather. Their leather is very, very durable when it is in this kind of finish. It's very hard wearing. I have my wallet on chain in the same leather and it's just so easy to maintain. So if, you know, being very classic and long wearing is something that you're concerned with, I'd always say to go for a more grained or pebbled finish on your leather. And my third point is about colour. Fact of the matter is that some colours are considered more classic than others, and if you want something that really is going to stand the test of time, I would always go neutral and go for either black or a cream, beige, nude, that sort of thing, kind of a similar colour to my Bayswater. I think there is a reason why Chanel only offer their classic flaps in 2 colours all the time, and that is black and they're beige. You know, those are the 2 most neutral colours out there. They are always popular, they go with absolutely everything, and they really do just stand the test of time. So if in doubt, I would always go for black and nude, which is often what I pick my bags in, because I just know I'll be able to match them with a lot of things and be able to wear them for a long time. There are obviously other colours if you did want to pop a colour. Red is another really popular one. white, even some shades of pale pink. You know, there are certainly exceptions, but generally speaking, if you wanted to play it super safe, then I would always go for black or nude cream beige, that sort of thing. And for my final point, I wanted to mention the actual shape of the bag, because functionality always wins out, which is why the most classic styles are often very functional and very versatile. And a good example of this are the camera bags, which I mentioned right at the beginning of the video. You know, there is a reason why this style is so enduringly popular. It's because it is very functional to use and it's very versatile in anyone's wardrobe as well. And on the opposite end of that spectrum are bags which are a bit more kind of faddish, I suppose. So here I'm thinking of micro bags which are too small to fit anything in at all, or even on the other end, you know, massive book totes which are so heavy that you don't want to carry them anywhere. So obviously there are going to always be extremes, and those are definitely fun trends to indulge in, but if you wanted something very classic, I would always say to look right in the middle in terms of just very normal but very functional and very useful design. And I think that's actually just a very useful guiding point, because what always stands the test of time is very beautiful functional design that actually enhances people's lives rather than making their lives more difficult. You know, if you have to try and make something work, then usually that's a sign that it's probably not going to stay in your wardrobe that long, and that's probably going to be true for other people, which lends itself to how classic that item is going to be. Whereas very beautiful design that's also very functional makes people's lives easier, and whether that's simply, you know, just by carrying their stuff very effectively or by making it easier to get dressed in the morning, that's what beautiful design is supposed to be about, you know, enhancing your life. So I would always say to pay attention to all those different elements with that in mind. So, you know, shape, style, color, all that sort of thing, durability, whether it's actually beautiful and functional, and that's going to be a big indicator as to whether it's going to be classic as well. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions for me, then leave me a comment down below. But as I mentioned, I will leave links to everything I featured in the description section. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you in my next one. Bye.